Go.
Hi, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how to preserve all this fruit that you might be invigorated to grow now. So a lot of the things we do with apples, for instance, is we can applesauce, and once you have canned your own applesauce, you will never want to buy store-bought applesauce again. You can really control the sugar, the amount of sugar you put in it. We kind of like ours with less sugar. You can even make no sugar applesauce. We also do apple butter, and this makes great gifts. And we like to use some crab apples in our apple butter, kind of gets it nice and tart. Because we have quince trees, we can just some poached quince that you can use when you're cooking savory dishes. It's great with halibut. And then there's quince butter, which is just like apple butter. It's just made with quinces. And we have one grandchild who just loves the quince butter. Oh, the other thing we make is apple cider syrup. And let me grab a jar out of the fridge. And this is like maple syrup. It's just apple juice that we have boiled down. So you would do apples like you would to make cider, but then you want to choose apples that have a high sugar content. And then you boil it down till it's kind of thick and viscous. And that's apple cider syrup. And we have another grandchild that just loves this for her pancakes. So, a couple of things to point out with apples it's good to dehydrate them. They make great snacks. So, and then once you have a dehydrated apples, they keep kind of forever. But that's a lot of apples to peel. Well, look at that. And that's just part of what we do. So, you can do it the normal way. You can sit here and peel your apples with a peeler. And if you notice, this is a red fleshed apple. Now some people, when they dry their apples, they actually don't bother to peel it. So I'll just do half of it peeled. Okay, and then you gotta quarter it and cut the core out. Okay, and then you gotta slicer it up. I'm preparing these for the dehydrator. Okay, and then you would put it in some water, a bowl of water that has some antioxidant in it. We use vitamin C crystals. In a pinch, you could probably use lemon juice. But this just keeps them from turning brown. So you would have to you see that gets a little tedious. But there's a very simple apple peeler tool, and it's worth its weight in gold. You can buy these at Wilco. They're metal, so they really hold up. They have two varieties. This is the kind that clamps onto the counter, and then there are ones that have a suction cup. We found the suction cup does not work very well because if it gets a little wet, it just loses its suction. So you just put the apple on there, kind of centered, and then you just run it through. It peels and cores the apple just like that.
And slices.
And slices, yes. And then all you got to really do is cut it in half and put it in your water. These probably cost less than somewhere between $20 and $30 probably. And I just recently saw them at Wilco, so I know they still sell them. That is a way to do a whole lot of apples. We normally do it with two of us, so one's running them through and the other one's slicing them up, cutting them in half and putting them in the water. Then once you have them in the water, what you want to do is just lay them out on these trays for your dehydrator. This brand happens to be a Nesco Garden Master. We found this works really well. There are many different models of dehydrators. We can stack this one up like 30 trays, and it works just fine. It has a blower in the bottom, and it blows warm air. You can set the temperature, and within a few hours, it will dehydrate the apples, as well as pears. I use it for, I just recently did prunes. We use it for vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, chili peppers, if you want dried chili peppers. You can use it for your small fruits, strawberries, blueberries, grapes. You can make your own raisins, things of that nature. Now, what I want to warn you is Nesco also makes this type that has the blower in the lid, and that really doesn't work very well because it can't really force air down over too many trays. This is fine for doing a couple trays of herbs. That's what I would use this one for. So I can have two dehydrators working at the same time. One doing apples, one doing my basil. But I would not recommend, if most people only need one, I would not recommend buying that kind. So make sure when you're getting one, it's one that's blowing air up. The other thing to talk about is storing your apples. Apples are when they're whole, apples are best stored very cold, almost freezing temperature. So if you have a spare refrigerator and you can set the temperature of the refrigerator down lower than you would normally have it, you'll keep your apples a lot longer. We have a specially built walk-in cooler in our garage that we keep at 34 degrees. Oh yeah, 32 is freezing. 34 degrees. And that keeps the apples really well. So the late apples will keep for months with that mechanism. And the other thing we do with the excess apples we have is we give a lot away. We take probably more than 1,000 pounds to the food bank every year. My husband always says that we wait until the neighbors go to work and then we sneak over to their front door and put a bag of apples there, like zucchini. But we give a lot away to the neighborhood, and the bad apples, or when they get too soft to eat, we have the neighborhood deer who also love to eat the apples. So they all get put to a good use. That's all I can think about for preserve. I'm sure there's lots of other things you can do with apples. A lot of people make apple pie mix and just freeze that. Or can it, so that they have ready apple pie mixture in the middle of the winter. What I like to do is take a combination of dried apples and apple cider syrup and make what's called an apple cider pie. It's an old time recipe before they had refrigeration. That's how they made apple pies. And we found it actually has a lot more apple flavor than canning or freezing ready, just fresh apples for making a pie. So you'd have to find a recipe or email me and I'll send you a recipe. It's kind of a recipe I made up. But it takes some eggs and a lot of this and a little bit of thickener, and it just really makes a good pie in the middle of the winter. You'll think you're eating fresh apples. That's all I can think about. It's work, but then you get to, enjoy the fruits of your labor for a lot longer.